Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we are anything but straight. My name is Space, and I will be your host for today's episode of Spaced Out March Edition. That's how I'm going to say it from now on. So, a couple of things we'll get into. I've noticed that a few people have been like, where are you? Where have you been? Well, last year we announced that we were going to be doing a new schedule, and that new schedule was going to be where we do 2 months of production, and then we take a month off, and then we do 2 months of production, and then we take, a month off. So that way we can just stay, refreshed so we don't feel a little too stressed. Well, turns out that all of us have our own lives going on, a lot of lives going on. And so the 2 months production, 1 month break was just a little too stressful. It's a little stressful for me, mostly because I'm the one that basically schedules these recordings, and then I hand them over to Skithiryx for him to edit, and then I got to put the thumbnail together along with all the information, and it takes a little while to do that. It also puts a lot of pressure on Skithiryx as well, and that means that he has to be on top of like editing left and right, and because he's volunteer, I don't want to put that pressure on him. Even if someone said, I don't mind doing it, I love editing, I can do as many as you want, I know that deep down inside, that's probably not true because everyone has their limits. And so I'm not saying that Skithiryx has a limit. I'm just acknowledging the fact that he does a lot of hard work for us, a lot of tedious editing. And so I just kind of want to, give him a break a bit. And then I also wanted to not worry as much on my end as far as like, oh my God, we have to get ready for the next, month or two because we're not ready yet, kind of a thing. So that was the initial thing. But now we're changing it up again. We will be doing episodes. We'll have 2 or 3 coming out, for April, but we're going to do them bi-weekly. So we will record in between, or we'll have a break in between, but you'll have one episode of Friday, and then 2 weeks later, you'll have another episode, and 2 weeks later, you'll have another episode. And we'll do that. And then I'll put the equivalent of those amount of episodes together to create what would be the 2 months of production plus the 1 month of break. And I'll kind of go from there. I know it's not as much. I know that a lot of you would prefer that we have, weekly episodes, and it's great. It worked really well for a while, but there's kind of some things that go into it. So first off, I've got about, I think, 5 different hosts: Sparrow, Deer Dog, Boomy, Ruby. Oh yeah, and then myself. So that's 5 of us that host. I'm always on those episodes that I host with other people. So I have 4 other hosts to work with. Well, 4 of those hosts all have their own lives. So Sparrow is a full-time teacher. So trying to get a hold of her to record, it takes some time and it takes some work to figure out what day works best for her. That way I'm not overpressuring her. We don't record during the weekdays because obviously she's a teacher. She needs prep for those next days. So weekends are usually our thing, but I don't want to overbook my weekends because I like to have the weekend for myself because work gets really stressful for me. And so I need a break. So there's that. Boomy is basically a manager for her position that she's at, or her store. And so, it's hard to get a hold of her to get scheduled for a particular episode. And then for whatever reason, it comes to that day where we need to record, but something comes up. Unfortunately, we'll have to reschedule or rain check, and that can take some time to figure out what day would be best for her. And then we have Ruby. Ruby is also a teacher. She, I think, is either part-time or full-time, and she's learning the ropes and stuff. And then, of course, she's also going to school. So there's that going on. I got to kind of schedule around her days. And then we have Deer Dog, and Deer Dog also works full time, but she's also applying for, graphic artist jobs. And so, of course, I want to make sure that when we do a recording, it revolves best around her. Plus, she's located in UK. So there is a massive time difference between Utah MST, which is Mountain Standard Time in the US, to where she is. So I kind of have to plan out for those and when it's going to work best. So on top of that, we got to think of topics, which we have, but then we have to create notes, and we create individual notes for each episode. So they're completely different. We try to keep the format the same where we do certain things, but for the most part, we like to do a full-on custom note set. And that also, again, takes time. And to work with one of 4 of the hosts that are available, it also has to be this kind of mutual agreement where I work on the notes, but they also work on the notes. And it's trying to schedule back and forth when they can get time to do so. So there's that. And so it just takes a lot of time and kind of like, I guess you could call it schedule tossing around, because I have like this like visual schedule in my head that I kind of just like think of. And I'm like, okay, they're good for this date. They're good for that time. And I kind of like lock those into my brain. On top of that, I'm doing my own things and I have a time to meet, because if you guys listen to one of our previous episodes, you know that I do something called the Unofficial Celebration Committee, where we basically give presents to those who are on our facility support team, which is statewide. And no one else does this, and no one really knows that it's both me and a coworker. And of course, we had to decide, okay, who's doing who, and then we kind of set a budget, and then we have to like make those gifts. So there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes that you guys don't necessarily see. But yeah, there's a lot going on. So I think with all that we do, I think with all the episodes that we have, there's enough to kind of go back and re-listen to. But I think we also kind of deserve to do a every 2-week rollout for episodes. You know, and it's interesting because we always say like, or I'm always like, yes, I got a new plan. It's going to work out really well. We do it. But then I find out that during that whole rollout, something isn't working. And so then I have to kind of think on my feet, okay, how can I better mend this situation? You know, how can I better make it easier or less stressful for my team members? You know, and that's my role as basically the owner and the founder of Straight from the Muzzle. And then, of course, you know, Sparrow's also the co-founder as well. But initially, at the very beginning, where it was for media, I was the founder. And so I would say about 85% of the, what do you call it, workload. And I kind of just try to distribute them back out as much as I can. Luckily, it's not a ton, you know, which is great. It doesn't really like fully impact everything that I do, but there's enough impact that I do want to make sure that I have enough, you know, buffer room for things that go on outside of the podcast and both inside. I do hope that you guys can appreciate that. Of course, I love recording episodes and I love being able to put those out for you, but I also need to look out for my team, and, you know, they come first in this particular type of thing. We have a few things to go over today. We have a lot of emails. We have, 11 emails, maybe 12. I might have to go back into the inbox and take a look. We have a lot of emails that I'm going to be reading out. I'll be doing them from chronological order, so when they first arrived. And then I also put a tweet out on Twitter. That should be pretty obvious if I say a tweet on Twitter. Duh. And we've been talking a little bit about a couple of things. One tweet that I put out, and this was before Sparrow put out her tweet specifically. Let me see if I can go to that real quick before I forget. There it is. Okay, first and foremost, when it comes to our podcast, we typically stray away from politics for a lot of different reasons. I do love a good controversial episode, and I'm all for those. And we usually pick and choose which ones we want to do. But the other thing too is I like to keep politics, if I can, out of our episodes, mostly because those who are listening come to listen to all the good stuff and all the positive. And that's what we want to provide, is a positive outcome so that you, the listener, gets a really good episode and you feel good, and that gets you going for the next day or two. You know, politics usually, it's rough because you can easily offend anyone or everyone. And they're also really touchy, and a lot of podcasts that don't talk about politics will fully avoid it. But this particular thing cannot be avoided. And if you guys have been paying attention to the news as of recent, you'll probably know what I'm going to talk about here. And that is Ukraine. There's been a lot of devastation on Ukrainians. And what Russia is doing is just an atrocity. And I still don't understand why they're doing what they're doing and why they're attacking civilians. I get that it's probably a military move on their end, but why are you attacking civilians, right? It blows my mind. Russia at one point said, we're not attacking civilians. And during that, they were attacking civilians. And it just doesn't really make sense to me. So there's a lot of innocent lives that are being lost. There's a lot of people that are trying to escape the country as fast as they can. But I've been staying on this, keeping up to date on Ukraine as much as possible, because I don't want the worst to happen. I don't want a World War III to burst out, but I also don't want Ukraine to be eradicated either. And as an American, I'm kind of disappointed that we're not stepping up to the plate and saying, or our president's not stepping up to the plate and saying, okay, we need to put a foot down and say no. I understand that there's NATO. I understand that NATO was created a while ago and there's countries that are a part of it. But there also has to be something called a moral conscience. And the moral conscience says here, if you obviously see a country in despair, stand up and do something about it. It's like when people are bullied and people watch those people being bullied, but they never say anything about it, mostly because of their own interest or to keep themselves out of being bullied. But the thing is for those who do stand up, those people are a leader to everyone else. That's someone that someone can rally around. I don't stand for bullying. I always stand up and say something, even if that means myself that I get a hit back saying, you really shouldn't be talking about this person anyways, or you really aren't part of the situation. And I always say, well, I don't care. I don't approve of bullying, and I will stand up for whoever out there is being bullied. Obviously on the more moral value. If it's just like a Karen getting their feelings hurt, I really don't care about that. But as an American, I really wish our president would do more. I really wish they would be more involved other than just sending weapons and, humanitarian aid, because they need more. The country, I think it's great. The citizens are fighting and they're standing up, but only because a lot of them between a specific age range in the men, they have to stay behind and they have to fight. But there are others that are choosing to stay behind to fight for their country. And I find that so admirable. But at the same time, I really feel like our country should be doing more, because I'm not going to say this because it's kind of true, but it's also kind of how things work. People want to believe in something. And when you step out and you say, we're going to do something different and we're going to do it and we're going to help, people follow that. They recognize that. United States used to be a world leader in freedom. And right now we're not really leading. We're kind of just disappointing. And I get really just upset about that, because if it were me, I would love to go over there and do what I can. I don't want to kill anyone. That's a thing I will tell you right now. I have never physically laid a hand on anyone. I mean, obviously, like behind the scenes when, like sexually, kind of, that's a different thing. But like in general, I have never hurt anyone. But I think I would rather stand by a Ukrainian soldier to defend their country than stand on the sidelines and watch all of this go down. That's just my opinion right there. I did tweet something and I asked this: are there any Ukrainian furs or furries in Ukraine that have made it out of the country safely? Furthermore, do we know of anyone who has stayed to fight? And sadly, do we know of anyone we may have lost? I did want to give that ability for people to go ahead and make a comment if they wanted to, or retweet it. There were a few comments. Aries Griffin basically said, unfortunately, a friend of mine had a friend out there that didn't make it in one of the blasts. That's really sad, because a life lost is a life lost, regardless of who you are and who you are from. There was another person that Quentin Coyote had commented and said for war suits, and they're a Ukrainian. They're from Ukraine. So they had mentioned that I didn't leave Ukraine. Ukrainian men from 18 to 60 are not allowed to leave Ukraine. They also further said that lots of Ukrainian furs are refugees now, but they stay in Ukraine. I don't know anyone who stayed to fight, though I know kids who are in dangerous situations are now in Kharkiv, Kiev, and Kherson or Kherson. No info about deaths among furries, though, as far as I'm aware. And then another person who doesn't appear to be a furry, but decided to go ahead and comment on this. They're actually Ukrainian, as far as I can tell, or maybe they're just an advocate. But on their actual profile, this person's name is Sky, or at Head in the Clouds. And they said, DM me if you're in Ukraine and need assistance or want to leave. Working with an organization, SafeBoat/Rain Dove, we can help. Safe space for everyone. And they basically commented on this and they said, hello, if you're anyone who needs to get out of Kharkiv, perhaps even the Ukraine, are in need of shelter or supplies, please reach out. So that really means a lot. This person came out of nowhere and they basically want to let people know we can help. I've also did something. Humble Bundle is doing a thing right now for Ukraine. Let me pull up Humble Bundle real quick. And the bundle is called Stay with Ukraine. Now, by the time this posts, this bundle will be over with, but so far they have raised $11,612,337. I'll include this link in the actual episode itself, but by the time you listen to this, this particular bundle will be over. What's really amazing is that 100% of the proceeds that are raised in this bundle are donated to Ukraine. And the other cool thing, there's like a win-win. It's like a win-win on this one. You win because you get to donate, but you also win because you get you get stuff from it. So if you donate at least $40, you'll get 123 items. That's both games, software, books, music, you name it. So I made a donation last Saturday, which was, I think, the 19th. Yeah, the 19th. And so now I got a boatload of games just kind of sitting in my email. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with them because I might just give them out. Who knows? So there's that. Another tweet. This is something not related to the Ukraine crisis. This is actually more related to an upcoming episode that we're going to be recording soon. Basically, Sparrow came to me and she said that she wants to do a topic about, this is really hard because I have to remember exactly how I said it. We're going to be recording a topic this week called Disability Accessibility at Conventions. And so a lot of things that we've noticed that a lot of things revolving around disabilities don't get talked about as much. And let's just be honest, a lot of the fandom is already autistic, and there's also going to be people in there that have disabilities as well. We want to review and see what ways can conventions do, or I guess implement, to better improve accessibility for those who have disabilities. And it's simple as a disability, for instance, with someone who may have diabetes or wheelchair access. So this is what she posted on Twitter. She said, I know it is late, so I may not get a big response, but are there any furries that 3D print that would be willing to make large medical ID tags for fursuiters? Out of suit, I wear one just in case of an emergency, and I feel having one visible while suiting would be helpful as well. This sparked 93 retweets, 5 quoted tweets, and 327 likes. She has lots of comments on it, which is great to see. And so this is actually a really good idea. If you think about it, if let's say you are diabetic, you do have that bracelet that you wear, what's going to tell someone when you're fursuiting you're diabetic? Sure, you could wear a sash or you could wear like a lanyard or something, but those lanyards, they flip around, they get smashed and stuff. And I guess you do kind of focus on those, but it would be kind of nice if there was like I guess you could say a 3D printed band that one could wear around their arm or maybe their waist or on their ears somewhere that would stay placed that would say, I'm diabetic in case of emergency, things like that. So yeah, I'll also put that link in the description below. All right, time for emails. Like I said, we got a lot, so we have to go through a bunch. There is one on here that won't make it into this particular episode, mostly because it's a review of one of our last episodes about fursuit maker reviews. But it's funny because of what happened at the end of it. So I'm going to go in there and see if I can find it real quick because it's hilarious. So there is this email, and it's basically like, what do you call it? A comment on an episode that we did and their opinion and their view on it. We won't reveal what that particular email fully says, but I will just say that at the end of it, this particular furry has basically, quote unquote, proposed to Dear Dog, which will now make Dear Dog the first official team member of this podcast to be proposed to by a listener. And I told her about this and she's like, that's so funny. Can you show me the email? And that was like at 6:08, and then at 6:37, she's like, God, the curiosity is killing me. And I'm like, I'm recording an episode. You can wait a little bit later. Jeez. I'm going to start chronologically. So the first email that we got comes from Hunter, and this came from February 16th. So this shows you how far out we are. They say, hey there, guys. You can call me Hunter, seeing that's my persona's name. He is a dark green and sand brown Western dragon. I'm still working on his portfolio and reference sheet. I have followed the fandom for a couple of years now from the background, and 6 months ago started becoming active by trying to get better at art in both digital and traditional, and just making the fandom on VR chat and chat groups. I wanted to try VR. I don't have VR. It's too expensive for me because I like spending on other stuff. Don't tell anyone. But I guess I've heard that you can just play it on PC. It's not as fun, though. Anyways, I would like to say thank you for your show and all the joy that you have brought to your fans. I found your podcast about a month ago when I was in a dark space due to all the stress of the holidays and just reliving and rethinking a bunch of past mistakes. But thanks to you guys, I found ways to talk and have fun with the fandom. I'm actually going to my first furry convention in March, so here's to hoping it goes well. P.S. You guys are doing great. Keep up the good work. Well, I'm so excited. So I can't wait to hear from them which convention they go to and how the convention went for them. That's so exciting. So thanks, Hunter, for sending an email. Our next email comes from Rot, and this one's from Feb 21st. So they say, hello, my name is Rot, and I use they, them pronouns. I thought I would send an email as I have been listening. Sorry, I thought I had yanked out my thing, but I didn't. They said, I thought I would send an email as I've been listening to the podcast for about 2 weeks now. The reason I started listening to the podcast was more out of curiosity on what subjects the furries would talk about. And through the process of listening, I've become a furry as it seemed like a community that's filled with a lot of interesting stories and people. And I have been having a lot of fun so far. I guess I just wanted to say thank you for the content and also for being one of the reasons I decided to become a furry. Please keep up the good work and try not to work yourselves too hard. Sincerely yours, Rot. I want to say thank you. It always makes me super, super happy to see people, not necessarily they join the fandom because of us, but because they find our podcast, they really enjoy our episodes and our topics. We're not generic. Okay, we aren't like other podcasters or furry podcasters out there where we're trying to fully like win as many followers as we can and we're trying to be as popular as possible. There's other podcasts for that and you'll find that. But for us, it's more about a personal take. It's more about you as the individual and us who I like to think we represent a pretty good variety of furries out there in the fandom. And I want to think that we're all pretty much just like you, because we all come from different backgrounds. You know, we all have different, I guess you could say, points of view on the fandom and on reality. And that makes us a lot different from your average furry podcast that may be trying to do the same thing. I'm all about caring. I'm all about making friends and creating situations where more friendships can be created, i.e. our Telegram group, which by the way is so, I'm not going to say is so popular. It's just there's so much chatter that goes in there. Whereas a couple months ago, there would have been like maybe 30 or 40 like a day. Now it's like 112, 150 per day that I go in through. And I'm like, crap, I'm behind in all the chatter. Shoot. So I want to thank you, Rot, for listening in. And hopefully you're still listening. I know I haven't responded since then, but trust me, I will respond once I'm done recording this episode. All right. The next person... Let's see here. There's quite a lot to go through. So give me just a moment and I will get started with this. So this next email comes from Clips. Keep in mind that they are 17. So with that in mind, just know that the following email reads out pretty much like a 17-year-old would write it or how they would think. Hi, my name is Clips. Well, my persona name is Clips. If you couldn't tell by my Gmail name, I'm not going to say their Gmail name. Also, mentally prepare yourself for the rant that you are about to read. It is quite an email, but it's a good email. They say, I'm 17, my persona is a red fox, very basic, I'm aware, and I've identified as a furry since I was around 10 or 12-ish. Anyways, I've been listening to your podcast for about a month now, and I'm completely obsessed. I love everything about the show. It's comedy, it's boldness going into detail about parts of the community that don't typically get talked about, and most of all, how interactive and supportive you are of your audience. I legitimately tear up sometimes while listening to your podcast. I've grown up in a very Christian household and was taught extremely negative views on the LGBTQ community. And a lot of my friends from church taught me that furries were freaks and legitimately deserved to die. Rude. That's just me right there saying rude. I was extremely homophobic at the time and I identified as a furry. In 8th grade, I came out to my best friend that I was a furry because I trusted him. He then told one of his friends, which eventually led to the whole school learning, no. Now I was known as both the homophobic and furry kid, which caused me to become an outcast of sorts. I can see that becoming a thing. It turns around, just FYI. I started getting bullied a lot, and that's in caps, The worst of my experience of being bullied were a group of kids started shoving me to the ground so I'd be on all my fours like the animal they thought I was, and they would push me back down when I got back up, and they'd push me harder and harder as I tried to run up and get help. I almost got away, but one of the boys tackled me and, kid you not, broke my arm. And of course, that was too far for some of the other boys, and some of the other ones ran to go get help. Luckily, the bullying started to die down a little after that. High school was a wreck. My whole world changed, where I made a discovery that horrified me. I frequently felt attracted to popular and cute guys that I was around with, which contradicted everything I was taught by my parents and all of my closest friends. I hated that I felt that way towards other boys and almost committed suicide twice. It wasn't until 2 years later when I fell in love with a gender flex person at summer camp, which is just a year later. Oh, sorry, which was just last year. That was my bad. They helped me explore my identity, and I discovered that I was pansexual. Yay, pride. That was what they were saying. After I got home from camp, I left my gender flex friend. I wrote a poem about my identity, which they won't put in here probably because it's too long. My parents found it, and they were pretty heckin' mad that I was keeping so much about myself from them. I became a freak to my family, and my two closest brothers sat me down and tried to convince me that I needed to stop being a pansexual furry or I was going to go to hell. I felt really bad about myself, but all of a sudden something changed. I was scrolling through my Spotify and I came across your podcast. I decided to give it a try and instantly fell in love, and it made me feel so much more comfortable with who I am and what I love and what I enjoy. I'm sorry this email is so long. I just really wanted to share my story with you because it was your stories that kept me going. Your stories pulled me out of the dark. Your stories helped me learn more of who I am. And if it wasn't for your stories, I would still be a depressed and anxious person. But now I'm eager to come out to people with who I am. They did say that they didn't write this email for the podcast, but if I did read it out loud, they would die in happiness and that they would friggin' explode. They also sent a picture of Clips the Fox, and it's super cute. They also have a GIF in there too, and it worked the first time, but sometimes the Gmail, it doesn't tell you that it's working or it doesn't send correctly. So it sends this odd perception or feeling that it didn't get sent. So they did send it a couple more times just to make sure it went through, but it did go through. Things I want to point out, it's always important to remember that when I was a kid, we learn a lot. We basically do what we're told. And if we're kind of told over and over again that we're supposed to be something, but then later we feel that we're not, that's totally okay. I'm Mormon, and we never talked about gay people, but it was never highlighted, and it was kind of frowned upon in our family. So I never really came out for a long time because I was afraid. And when I did find out, I felt like it was a curse, and I asked God, I'm like, God, why did you do this to me? Why would you make me the person that I am right now? Because it's such a burden. And I did that a couple of times. And then after a while, I started to accept myself for who I am. And it got better after that. Not to say that it didn't get worse, because there were some bad moments, but overall, it got better. So I totally understand that. And I totally understand that you would want to commit suicide because of all of it too. That really, it's not a good place. What I am really glad about, though, is that this person was able to find themselves at a camp, which is great. And they found someone that accepts them for who they are. And on top of that, I'm super, super happy that they came across our podcast and felt loved, because that's what's most important. To you as the individual, you are 100%. I can't think of the word. What is the word? I'm not going to say validated. You are validated. Everyone is validated, but you are 100% okay to feel the way that you feel and to feel inspired. And the fact that you told us, that makes me feel even better that what we're doing is for the greater good. So thanks, Clips, for emailing. Okay, then let's see our next one. Oh, I got a burp. Oh, that was so weak. When I started recording, I told my editor, because he has to listen to this, and I'm like, I have to burp. Oh, no, I don't. And then I tried to force it, and it didn't come. And now it did, but now it's lame. Write that in, that burp right there. Okay. Our next email comes from, we will call them Carrot 2 Studios, just because they don't really reveal who they are specifically. But they said, hello, I love you guys in your podcast. I wanted to give you a story about the good things and the bad things about my school, knowing I'm a furry. Also, if you use my story in the podcast, please refer to me as Carrot. which basically I did. So one day I was in the gym and someone started barking at me. So I jokingly barked back, but then they started screaming at me, "Oh my God, you're a furry." So I told them, "Oh yes, I'm a furry. Thank you for noticing." And then they were all like, "Ew, gross, effing furry, go die." So now I kind of have to just embrace my inner furry. I've just started wearing fox ears and a tail, and sometimes I bring my dino masks because they already bark at me and call me a furry and stuff. So, why not? I love you, and I'm currently listening to your COVID Bitch Fest. There's lots of different COVID Bitch Fests, so I'm not sure which one they were actually listening to. But I actually love this email. I love that they barked back because that's probably something I would have done, but I would have been like, the hell? And given like this like side face, bitch face kind of a thing. It's always interesting when people say, that they're furry and other people freak out that they're furry. And it's funny because those people who do freak out that that person is furry do in the end actually end up being a furry, or they end up being closet something. So it's really interesting. Just a little advice. I know that you want to start wearing fox ears and a tail or a dino mask, and that's totally awesome. But I think I would try to avoid that at school. And the reason being is it gives people a reason to, I guess you could say, poke fun or to kind of make your life a little bit worse. Not to say that you shouldn't embrace your inner furry, because you totally should. You should embrace everything about you and then some. But if you want to make life a little bit easier, and I'm speaking from the heart because I was bullied, jumped, beat up, held at knife point, pretty much all these different types of things when I was growing up in elementary school, middle school, and high school. Speaking from the heart, if you can do anything that doesn't bring attention to you and it lets you fly under the radar, go with that. But otherwise, thanks for listening to our podcast. All right, moving on to the next person. All right, so our next email comes from Furry X. I say that because I don't really know their actual name. Well, I don't know their furry name, but I don't want to say their real name out of respect and out of confidence. But they say this: "Hi, I'm a huge fan of your show, and I need some help with something. You see, I chose a red panda to be my species, but I've been reconsidering and was wondering which species would fit me best. I am a smart, kind, quick to become overwhelmed, anxiety, geeky, indecisive, lonely, shy, and overdramatic. If you could see what animal fits me best, that would be so helpful. I hope you consider, and thank you very much." So I did respond back and I gave them some options. So probably some options that you wouldn't really think to do unless you were suggested by someone. So in this case, me. So this is what I said. So I said, "Hello, Furry X. I would recommend 2 to 3 options. Option 1. Based on the types you suggested that you are, I would recommend taking this thorough personality test. It's a mirror of the Briggs-Myers test. I'm going to go into detail about what that is. It takes time to do, but there's a reason why I want you to try this out. There's something called the Myers-Briggs personality test, and it is the most accurate and professional test you can take to get a legit result about yourself. Now, the official Myers-Briggs test is really expensive, so I've linked to you the free but most highly recommended alternative for you to use. When you get your result, you will be defined by 4 out of 6 letters, which are N is in Nancy, which is intuitive, T is in Tom, which is thinking, F is in Frank, which is feeling, and I'm saying the phonetically so you guys can understand the letters that I'm saying. S is in Sam, which equals observant, J as in John, as my name, which equals judging, and P as in Paul, which is prospecting. Once you get your 4 letters, you can go to the Myers-Briggs animal personality types, which will take the 4 letters you got and apply that to a specific animal personality. So that's one way to do it. There's other 2 options that I said as well. No matter how many tests you take, nothing can truly be as personal as to how you feel about yourself. The red panda is a cute choice, but if you feel it doesn't represent you, then it's not the right choice for you. Looking at the types you listed, I immediately think of pandas. So we're kind of like on the same line here. They're smart, indecisive, and overdramatic, but they don't fit the other stuff listed. With all the types you gave, yes, I Googled animal options. One specific animal that fits them perfectly is the cheetah. The cheetahs are very smart, fast-thinking, but lonely and shy animals. They easily become overwhelmed, which causes a lot of stress in their lives, which then leads to no breeding. Cheetahs are socially awkward and have problems communicating themselves with their own family and pack. But multiple studies have shown that cheetahs are often best paired with dogs, like the kind you would have at home. The reason being is because the dog has no shame and always has these happy-go-lucky, carefree attitudes. When cheetahs are paired with dogs, they come out of their shell and become socially active and happier. So if you didn't know that, there you go. The more you know. And then option 3 is create a hybrid between the cheetah and the dog breed of your choice. Doing this can acknowledge who you are, but also something you might want to be. And then I said, I hope this helps. And I'll be talking about your email in my next Spaced Out episode. So I got a follow-up email from that. And they just said, hi, Space Bear Sparks. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your suggestions. I took the Murray-Briggs test, or the Briggs-Murray. I can't remember if it's which. I know I just read it, but whatever. I took the Murray-Briggs test and ended up getting a wolf as my animal. So I decided to do a cheetah-wolf hybrid, as wolves are closely related to dogs. And I have included a piece of art of him that I am super proud of. Also, thank you so much for mentioning me in your podcast. Can't wait for the episode to come out. Sincerely, Teal, the cheetah wolf. So now we have a name. And they sent some art, and I love it. I love when people send art. It doesn't matter if your art skills are just crap or if your art skills are amazing. I love seeing it because it represents the person who they are, regardless of their skill. So I love this one. It's him as a cheetah wolf, and he's playing a guitar while sitting on a bed. It's super cute. And I will include this in the episode. It'll be a link to our, I'm trying to think what it's called. I've totally forgot about it. It's something. You'll be able to see it if you click on it. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad, and I'm so happy that you found a persona that works for you. So those are some options you guys can do. You can take a Myers-Briggs test. You can take the free one, which I'll link in the information below, and that will help you kind of find your personality type, and then also like an animal personality type. A lot of corporations, a lot of professions actually use the Myers-Briggs test as well to see what kind of person you would be and if you would even be considered for a position for something. Because as crazy as this sounds, although it's just a test, it is, once again, the most accurate test on the planet that 100% shows the results of who you are as a person. Now, that only depends on how you answer that. So when you look at this particular survey and you decide to take it and be as honest as possible. Because if you're not being as honest as possible, the result you get will not be you. It'll be something that you fabricated and is not you at all. So moving on from Graysome the Skull Dog. They say, Dear Straight from the Muzzle team, hello, this is just an email that I decided to send. Also, it's me, Graysome, the Skull Dog. I love that they say that. First off, I got a question. How should I start streaming? I want to start streaming on Twitch, but I don't know how to start. Should I play games, have a talk show, or should I try doing art? I'm working towards getting my own computer, but after that, I'm not sure. Second, I found a really cool thing in my area. I'll link the picture, but I found a poster that was an advertisement for a furry meetup in Denton. I don't know where Denton is. I'm going to have to Google that. I did not Google Denton yet. I'm planning on going, and I'm really excited. Lastly, I got maybe one Halloween episode idea as an episode about skull dogs, scolbies, or scullies. I'd love to hear where skull dogs first came from. There are a few people on TikTok that would be great to talk to as well on just YouTube. Just throwing it out there. Have a great day and keep making the world just a little bit more furry. With best wishes, Graysome. Now, I did take a look at this flyer, and it is pretty damn cute. So I'd love to know who thought this idea was amazing, and why hasn't anyone else thought to do this and put it in public to begin with, right? We've actually been talking, Sparrow and I, about skull dogs lately. So this is actually a really good email just out of nowhere to mention it. So we'll probably do an episode about it, and you'll probably hear it on season 8 or season 9, but most likely season 8. So thank you for that suggestion. Oh, and as far as like streaming, when I ran for media, we did a lot of streaming, like live streaming, and it was really difficult because you have to know your settings, your setup, where things go. And if you're not really savvy with that kind of a thing, it gets really difficult. I know a lot of people want to go onto Twitch and they want to do things. I know that Twitch is primarily a gaming streaming service. So if you're just going on there to do a talk show, I don't know if that would really work unless you were talking about games. I'll have to get back to you on that to see what would be the best options for you, but I will get back to you on it. Another person said, just checking in on Straight from the Muzzle. It's been a bit since you last did your last episode? How's the cast doing? As always, I'm looking forward to your next episode. Hope to hear you guys soon, and say hi to Dear Dog for me, would you? Live long and prosper. And then they signed, oh God, I hope I can say this correctly. La Hyena Relampago, or Shazapara. That's who they are. I'm not really sure what that part means. It could probably say the hyena something, but I don't know. And then our last email comes from Rexy the Rainbow Proto. That one really does roll off the tongue, and I like that. I'm a fan of the show, and I would like to recommend its subject. The subject I would like to recommend is going into depth about different sides of the fandom, art, fursuiting, and so on. And I know there's a lot of sides that you guys can pick and choose which ones you want to review. You're a fan, Rexy the Rainbow Proto. So to kind of answer this, actually, we do a lot of different takes on the fandom, and we do go into depth about them. But I do want to say that I do want to go into depth more about those different sides of the fandom, because there's always we usually always scratch the surface, but I know there's more down below, and we could go on forever, but we never do. So I will do that. I will make sure that we talk about more different sides of the fandom and go more into depth about them. But yeah, that's it. There is an ad out there. I don't know if you guys probably have listened or heard on the beginning of our intros, but the ad basically says is if you have an embarrassing story, something that's happened to you when you were in public or just in general, we want you to email us, because we're going to be talking about it in April. We were supposed to do it for April Fool's Day, but there is no way we're going to get that one in time. So I'll probably produce the episode in April at some point. It'll probably be, let's see, it might be the April 1st. It might be the 15th or the 29th. But email us your embarrassing stories. I've got a few, like the time I farted in an elevator only to let it open to be the administrator that's going to be coming in as I get off. So there's definitely stories I've got. Once again, thanks everyone for emailing in. I absolutely love it. And I look forward to all the other emails that I get to read on my next Spaced Out episode, which will happen in April. And that one will not be on the bi-weekly schedule. It'll just be part of April, as like every month usually is. So anyways, everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next time.